the Butterfields. They lived in Utah, in a nice neighborhood. Tony and Catherine, young couple, married, 3 beautiful young children. And what are they doing? They're at their home in the middle of the night. You should be safe. But the Butterfields weren't. There was someone there with a gun. And Tony and Catherine, I'm sure they know that their 3 children are home, and they are doing anything and everything to try to fight off this person. They battled. They had knives. They battled. They fought for their lives. They fought to protect the lives of those 3 young children. But Tony and Catherine lost their lives. And it shouldn't have happened. It did happen. And while you should be safe at home, they weren't safe in their own home. Well, there was a nationwide manhunt. A suspect was arrested. And tonight, Chanley Painter has more for us.
He did come home with wounds on his arms in particular and was bleeding profusely, and told her that his life was over.
Police say that is what Albert Johnson told his wife after allegedly killing Tony and Catherine Butterfield. Johnson is suspected of shooting to death the couple as their children slept. His wife, Sina Johnson, is accused of helping him clean up after the murders, throwing away his shoes, a sheet, and his bloody clothes.
She took the clothes that he took off that were bloody. She threw them away. She threw them in a dumpster. And officers found that out when they spoke with her, and they were able to recover that clothing.
According to police, she admitted cleaning up their apartment because there was, quote, blood downstairs, on the hallway walls, and in the bathroom. Sina is charged with obstructing justice and being held on $100,000 bail. Police also learned that Albert Johnson had asked for work at the couple's landscaping company before the murders. According to police, after the murders, Johnson fled to California.
Mr. Johnson has extensive criminal history in the state of California. It's my understanding, that he's lived there most of his life.
After a manhunt that started Saturday, Johnson was arrested Wednesday in California. Police say he violently resisted arrest and tried to get away. The extent of the struggle is seen in Johnson's mugshot.
I'm seeing that picture and I'm thinking to myself, it looks like it was it took a substantial effort to get him into custody.
West Jordan police are waiting for a court ruling on efforts to extradite Johnson back to Utah to stand trial for the murders.
Then after that, the court process begins. If we're able to get a successful filing from our district attorney's office, solidifying the charges, and there's an arraignment, we can then begin moving forward with the court process.
What a tragic, horrible story. Let's bring in Chanley Painter on this one. Chanley, a lot of information you just gave us there. First question, though, for you is this man who, there was a nationwide manhunt for this guy, multi-state. They found him in California. He's known as Psycho Al is his AKA. Do we know if police have spoken with this man, also known as Psycho Al?
Yeah, he's known as Psycho Al in Sacramento County, California, with an extensive criminal history, like the sergeant said in that interview. And he also told me that immediately, once the U.S. Marshals arrested Johnson on Wednesday morning, the West Jordan police sent 2 detectives to California to immediately interview him. He said while they were out there, they actually confiscated the car that he drove from Utah all the way to California. It was the one that they put the bolo out on, that 2008 Toyota Corolla. They were able to bring that back with them, the detectives, to Utah, where it is now being, searched for evidence forensically inside that car. But the defendant still remains in California.
So it seems from your reporting, Chanley, that there's a lot of evidence in this case, including the clothing and what's found in the car and the interview with the wife and whatever he is saying. He said he's in California. Got to get him into Utah. Has that process started yet? Where are we there?
It did. It's underway as of today, Vinny. The sergeant telling me today that there was an extradition hearing earlier, that process is underway. He said it was going to take probably a week to 10 days, though, to get him to Utah to face charges. He could face 2 aggravated murder charges. Those haven't formally been filed by the prosecutor yet in West Jordan, but they could file it even as a capital felony where he could face the death penalty if the prosecutors decide to pursue that route.
All right, Chanley Painter reporting for us tonight. I know we're going to speak again about the Supreme Court. I'm going to have to study during the commercials, but I'll get back with you in just a little bit. Let's bring in Ashley Banfield, Julie Grant, Ted Rollins to this conversation, my partners in crime and justice with me tonight. Ashley, as I listen to Chanley's reporting, the first thing that jumps out to me is I think they've got some very good evidence in this case.
Sounds like it, and we don't know the entire story, which is always the case, Vinny. You and I know from so many years of covering crime and justice, so much of it comes out later. I was really struck, though, by that mugshot. At first, I thought maybe the Butterfields had fought for their lives. It sounds like they did because of the stab wounds, the knife wounds. But then to see that there was this struggle to arrest him, it brought to mind another manhunt that went on for 8 days in Orlando. Police finally catching up with a guy named Markeith Lloyd. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because that guy was holed up in a house, surrounded by the police, came out eventually, defying their orders, on his belly, in a flak vest, ultimately a heated confrontation, 4 police officers on video beating him into submission, using a rifle butt as well, and that guy lost his left eye. So you would think that might engender some kind of, I don't know, sympathy. Not at all. That guy was wanted for 2 murders. He's already been convicted of one of them for his pregnant ex-girlfriend, and the next case was supposed to go to court next month, actually, and that was the killing of an Orlando police officer. So doesn't matter how bad beat up you are, it's not going to help your case looking like that.
No, it's not. Sergeant Holt also spoke about the community reaction on this one. I want to take a listen to that.
It's far-reaching. I mean, the impact is very far-reaching. This case has taken a toll on our community as a whole, really. I mean, with the area where we are here, the greater Salt Lake area, it's all over the news. It's all over social media. I mean, it's just a tragedy. And so I think it hits close to home for a lot of folks. I mean, our homes are our sanctuaries. And when somebody comes into our home and does something bad, that's worst case scenario, right? Those are the things that we see on TV or in movies or things like that. Those aren't things that happen to us. And I think that's what the impact is it's so relatable to most folks. And the outpouring of support has been huge.
Julie Grant, I can imagine the community, the way they're reacting to all this. I mean, we're reacting to it around the country, but actually living there while everyone is with these stay-at-home orders to be safe, the exact opposite happened to Tony and Catherine Butterfield.
Right. And to your point, Vinny, and to the sergeant's point, which is excellent, the home is sacrosanct. That is the one place that everyone should feel safest in the whole wide world, your own home. And sadly, for that beautiful couple, that was taken away from them. And this case, it sickens me, it saddens me, and part of it impresses me. The sickening part, the details of the crime, the details of the cover-up, all of that just so sickening that these parents were killed in such a violent way in the place where they should feel the safest. The saddest part, they left behind 3 beautiful children under the age of 4. The little baby, this nearly brought me to tears. The baby, apparently the community members are rallying around this family. They've set up a GoFundMe account and they're taking donations for breast milk for that infant that I believe was 6 months old, little baby girl. These parents are going to grow up, or these children rather, are going to grow up without their parents because of the actions of one individual. And the thing that impresses me, Vinny, yes, the community coming together, holding prayer vigils and whatnot for this couple, and the response from the family, the fact that the relatives who were taking care of those children say that the victims, Tony and Catherine Butterfield, were God-fearing people, and they were people who were living a life of forgiveness and love, and they said that they're not harboring any ill will against the perpetrator, and that impressed me incredibly at the quick work of the U.S. Marshals in finding the suspect in the case. The Marshals are good. They will find you.
Oh, absolutely. The big question out there that we've been wondering from the beginning is why? You know, middle of the night, who is this guy? Is there a connection? Sergeant Holt spoke about a connection between the suspect and the Butterfields.
And yes, he did know them. It is true that he had applied for a job with them in the past. And part of the reason is, and I spoke with the detectives that are directly over the case, and a lot of this, the relationship between the two and the motives in that, they are trying to keep that somewhat close to the case so that when this does go to court, that we have the best chances at being successful. And there are some things that play into that, the intricate details of the case. And again, you know, this is a stage where we want to be as transparent as possible. We want to give as much information as possible, but we still want to maintain the integrity of the case.
Ted, this is the difficult part for me. I mean, there's no reasonable explanation that could exist anyway, but what would motivate someone to do this? And the connection they're talking about is that he applied for a job maybe with Butterfield Landscaping?
Yeah, it sounds to me like it is revenge, maybe, that they didn't give him a job. So Mr. Psycho Al from Sacramento is going to be gangster and go in and make them pay. I mean, that's only, he didn't go there to steal what they have in their home, I wouldn't think. This is what nightmares are made of, this guy. This is why you lock your doors. And it is a heartbreaker. You know, those people, those lovely people in West Jordan, Utah that hold no ill will against him. I do. This guy is a horrible human being, and I'm looking forward to this one going to trial and seeing what possible motivation there was.
Yeah, and as we described, it seemed that the Butterfields, Tony and Catherine, were fighting for their lives that night. Sergeant spoke about the knife wounds.
Mr. Johnson did have wounds consistent with what we had described in our press conference the other day, with being attacked by a knife. And those wounds were on one of his arms and on his legs, just as we suspected that they were when we released that information. And so that helps solidify the case as well. We feel confident that we have a very good case here. We have some good police work that's happened. Procedures were followed. There's been some great collaboration and teamwork.
And Ashley, it just doesn't just solidify the case. I think it paints a picture of what those last moments of life were like for Tony and Catherine.
I can't even begin to go there. I'm in my home, and, you know, Julie mentioned it's sacrosanct. You feel safe here, you know, and to think of what those parents went through. I don't know if the last thought in their minds as they were dying is, what about those 3 kids, hopefully still asleep? You know, I don't know if that was it, but I do know another wife who's got hell to pay coming up in this case. Sina Johnson, she's in for a world of hurt because they've got her right now on obstruction of justice. And everybody who knows crime and justice knows that when you get one charge, it can only be the beginning. She could have a whole host of other charges levied against her, like maybe conspiracy. Sometimes that stuff happens. And sometimes it's because it's a squeeze play. They want Sina to realize her life could be over unless she coughs up every piece of evidence and knowledge of what that husband was up to and what he did in the immediate aftermath of this incident. And so I just remember the case, you know, right here down the street from me. It was the Fotis Doulos case. Jennifer Doulos, a mother of 5, was missing, and her husband, who she was in a pitched battle with for divorce, he and his girlfriend were both arrested. The girlfriend was originally facing, go figure, obstruction. And then whammo, Vinny, they hit her with conspiracy. And it's a good old-fashioned squeeze play to get the most evidence you can out of the other person who probably knows the most.
Absolutely. We, of course, will continue to follow this case. And again, it seems that at some point he's going to be extradited to Utah. Then he'll have to make his first appearance there.